You're listening to Puma Podcast.
Hi, I'm Franco Luna Puma Podcast. You're listening to Teka Teka News, balitang thinking, hindi breaking. This is the first episode of Teka Teka Para Po. It's our new transportation segment unpacking Metro Manila's mobility woes. And in this episode,
Hindi tama yun. Dapat lang, okay lang modernize yung jeep. Pero huwag alisin yung mukha ng jeep na dating lang natin yung kinagisnan. Mga turista nga, lagi nung dito pupuntahan, yung tinitingnan. Hindi dapat mawala yung forma niya.
don't worry, maporma pa rin yung mga modern jeepney prototypes that are locally made. Come for a ride. Today's story is extra special. I got to visit the factory of the famed Sarao Motors and try out one of the newer jeepney prototypes that Tatay Carling Aguilar, whom you just heard, is helping build. He's been a foreman at Sarao for the past 10 years.
Yan yung full electric, yung may green hood na yan. Ito naman yung may traditional feature pero basically the same. Ayan. Mas gusto nila to.
It's painted white and green. On the front, it has in capital bold letters, King of the Road. Sa may window yan. This one is fully electric, zero emissions to. On the side naman, it has a sticker that says, proudly Philippine-made.
Jeepney manufacturers say the design is important because
Creativity, resilience, tsaka multicultural siya. And coming out of the ashes of World War II, parang phoenix yan. Ayan na.
that's Ed Sarao. He's project and plant supervisor at Sarao Motors factory in Las Piñas. Sarao Motors has been building jeepneys since the 1950s. At its peak, the company was rolling out 12 to 15 jeepneys per day, all put together by hand. Ed, who inherited the company from his father and grandfather, says he's seen a lot of change since then.
Sige po, okay lang po.
It came out of necessity after the war. Kasi we need transportation for people, construction material, goods coming in and out of the war-torn cities. So, ang nangyari sa mga Pilipino, they fell in love with this military jeep and they can customize it into a jeepney. Dun nagsimula yan. Kaya out of necessity, and then finally the government noticed it, inilatag siya as a public transportation na. Through the years na yan, naging legal na. May system na and everything.
The word jeepney is a mishmash of jeep and jitney, which at the time was the informal American term for a bus or other vehicle carrying passengers for cheap. Today, the approximately 200,000 jeepneys nationwide serve an estimated 40 million commuters per day.
From the simple size of the jeepney, nag-evolve siya na it becomes wider, longer, dahil umaakma siya doon sa population growth ng metropolis until finally somewhere around 1980s or 90s, naging congested yung city. Then they have talked about phasing out or limiting the numbers of jeepney flying around Metro Manila.
Sa 80s pa lang, may talks na.
Actually, naka-short pants pa lang ako, meron ng usapan yan.
But in 2017, under President Duterte, the government started to get really serious about modernizing. They gave out subsidies and set deadlines. Duterte even threatened drivers and operators several times.
January 1, pag hindi nyo na modernize yan, umalis kayo. Mahirap kayo. Sige. Magtiis kayo sa hirap at gutom, wala akong pakialam. It's the majority of the Filipino people.
Huwag ninyong ipasubo ang tao.
Talagang nationwide, broadcast, may announcement, ganyan-ganyan about modernization program. Pero, they lack details and guidelines on what to do, especially sa manufacturers, sa mga local manufacturers.
So Sarao Motors got to work. They proudly showed us what they'd been working on since 2018. Modern jeepneys that have the interior of a jeepney fit for 2023, but an exterior that honors the distinctly Filipino design we've come to be known for.
Ito talagang jeepney pa rin, mataas lang yung bubong. Tapos, ito yung requirement, yung headroom, legroom, saka modular seats. Pwede ka pumasok, punta ka doon sa kabila.
Sige, please. I'm walking to the other one now. This one is full white. Sir Ed Sarao said that was an intentional choice so that they can ask artists to paint on it and give it that signature Philippine jeepney look. Ganun din siya, side door. Not too big a step going inside. And papasok na ako sa modernized jeepney ng Sarao Motors. Ayun, it's 2 benches on both sides. Open air siya. It's really what I would expect a modernized jeepney to look like. Kasi jeepney siya. The engine is protruding. Ganon din sa isa. But it's much more spacious. Can fit much more people too.
We're pausing for a quick break now. When we return, I check out the interiors of Sarao Motors' modern jeepney.
Ito yung nakita pa dito.
Ay, opo. So may ramp talaga.
Actually, the ramp is inside this one. You open this, you put the ramp, ganon na siya.
So nagpa-roll out siya ganun.
Oo, dito. Tapos yan, bukas siya ng PWD.
The modern jeepney prototypes of Sarao had all the features the government wants, but all the personality of a traditional jeepney. They're side-facing, have enough space for standing room, and have ramps.
I guess the most important parts of this are really the commuter experience and the fact na Euro 4 compliant siya. This is definitely much more comfortable just stepping inside and sitting down or standing up. There are 2 pipes on the ceiling for passengers to hold on if they're standing. Tapos, ayun nga no, the doors in the rear for both the jeepneys are also really spacious, really big. Hindi ka na yuyuko when going inside. You don't have to go through that sometimes uncomfortable bend and just having to rush.
Ed Sarao of the famed Sarao Motors says the jeepneys they've built are proudly Filipino-made. But just like some of the modernized PUVs that we're importing, they are also electric-powered and emission-free.
Well, it's full electric. It runs on lithium-ion. Then, yung company katayap namin dito, nag-install din ng solar panels, air condition, and those electric gadgets na kailangan. Nga lang talaga, the more you throw in technology or gadgets do sa sasakyan, it will really become expensive. Imagine 2.6 million. Paano ka bibili no kung operator ka? Well, yung earnings ng driver is around 500 to 600 pesos or more. Depende sa rota mo. Yung ginawa namin, seating capacity is around 20 ata yun. Then pag may standing, yung puno, pwedeng 30.
Sarao's prototype that runs on LPG should cost operators between 1.3 to 1.5 million. That's cheaper than the imported PUVs, which run from 2.8 million pesos. Above all, Ed says it was very important to them to keep that distinctly Filipino design.
It's a symbol of Filipinos being resilient, being colorful, being creative, nandiyan na sa jeepney. Once you put in the minibuses dyan, limited ng, we're like the rest of the world na pag nakita mo yung picture, ay, sa South America lang yan, minibuses. Actually sa Pilipinas pa. Not like when you see jeepneys on the streets, sa Philippines yan, definitely. Identity na natin yan. When you talk about Philippines,
Not only that, but as I said, they're still making them by hand.
may ano yan, manually made, syempre. So, you generate work for the community. Kasi fabrication, hindi naman kami nag-automation. Kaya we're more on skilled craftsman, fabricator ang kailangan namin. So yun ang big difference. You generate trabaho sa community. Siyempre may personal touch yan. It's like para ka nagpapagawa ng Amerikano o barong Tagalog. Pag nagpapagawa ka ng jeepney. Not like yung galing sa assembly line sa big companies, yung mga Japanese made or Chinese.
The only problem at this point is the availability of parts. Sarao can manufacture the body, chassis, and other mechanical parts, but acquiring the technology is a challenge. For now, the Euro 4 compliant engines have to be imported, but the rest of the parts Sarao uses are all locally sourced.
Other metal products like angular, tubular, puro dito galing din yun. Ang talaga lang natin yan, yung mga engine, transmission, steering wheel, axle, lahat yan Japan. Meron ng locally made na lip spring, radiator, and other spare parts. Just the powertrain ng problema natin.
Sarao Motors isn't the only local company pushing to help modernize jeepneys. Here's Elmer Francisco of Francisco Motors in an interview aired over the One News show sa Totoo Lang.
Ito, nakakatayo ka na sa loob ng jeepney. So, hindi ka na nakayoko. So, kung 5'9" ang height mo, pwede ka nang tumayo sa loob. Oo, base yan sa Philippine National Standards. Then, meron tayong dashcam, meron tayong CCTV, cameras. Then, meron din TV. So, meron din tayong air condition. Kaya ang ganitong unit is nasa 1.8 million to 2 million.
Francisco Motors units even have next-generation facial recognition scanners to serve as automatic fare collection systems. Now, cutting-edge tech is all well and good, but Ed says the new foreign-made jeepneys leave out a lot of nuances too.
Sa jeepney na lang, may interaction na yung mabayad, pasa-pasa kayo doon. Ganun na. Talaga may interaction. Not like yung modern, electric na yung bayad nyo doon. Naka-card ata kayo doon, di ba? Wala na. Hindi na kayo mag-uusap sa loob. Pero ang idea namin about putting ramps, it's manual eh. So there is a interaction with drivers, yung PWD and other commuters to help bayanihan ba? Hilahin yung rampa, gaganon yun, pasok yung commuter na PWD. At saka maganda lang kasi sa jeepney, it's multipurpose. Pwede mo siyang sakyan ng gulay, agricultural produce, marine products, construction material, tao. It's multipurpose talaga. Not like the minibuses specifically, tao lang. Eh kung may mga karga kang mga pamilyan, mga ibebenta mo, saan mo sasakay yun? Wala, kawawa yung mga iba. They have to hire van or anything.
Alam mo, may mga subsidy na binibigay ang gobyerno natin through the OTR, no? Nakakuha kami ng budgets. Hindi lang tax incentive, kundi talagang equity subsidy. Depende sa kung ano yung ilalagay nila doon sa unit, no? Pero kailangan nga lang ay ito ay air condition, no?
Okay.
Ito ay Euro 5 compliant, no? Yung mga upuan nila ay comfortable. Merong standard na sinusunod, no?
That was Transportation Secretary Jaime Bautista speaking at the Kapihan sa Manila Bay Forum just after the latest transport strike in March. He's since promised to prioritize local manufacturers instead of just importing from the likes of Hyundai and Mitsubishi. I asked Ed what he thought of these imports.
Are they not jeep sponsored?
Not really. When you talk with commuters, drivers, and operators, they still prepare the traditional silhouette, wherein up forward you have the engine, and behind the engine, the passengers and drivers. Ganon ang gusto nila. Not like a porting lunchbox na minibus na ganyan.
But Pinoy makers can't mass produce just yet. And Ed says it might take years before we see Filipino-made jeepneys fully replace the old models. Although for him, that's totally okay.
Siguro maganda rin yung ganon na in harmony, the traditional jeepney will fly around Metro Manila. At the same time, yung modern PUVs na sinasuggest nila. Siguro from there, through the years, they can make a study kung alin ang which is better to serve the commuters. Kasi one thing, the jeepney is also famous for their durability. Like, makikita mo yung jeepney namin dyan, they're 20-30 years.
Durable or not, the DOTR says they will soon have to phase out vehicles that are deemed not roadworthy, meaning jeepneys would have to pass a motor vehicle inspection test first, which will assess, for instance, whether they're smoke belchers or not. But Ed Sarao correctly pointed out that this roadworthiness test has been hanging over their heads for several years now.
Hindi nila magawa-gawang i-implement dahil talagang kailangan ng public transportation sa kamay nila. Kaya every time may news about phasing out and everything, hindi na kami na-alarma dyan. Because alam namin, jeepneys is here to stay. Ganun lang.
And that was today's episode of Teka Teka News. Again, I'm Franco Luna. This episode was edited by Pidoy Blanco. If you liked this episode, share it with a friend or two. And of course, don't forget to follow Teka Teka News and Puma Podcast on your favorite podcast app or on YouTube. Thanks for listening.